We use facts and data as a way of discerning, first of all, how to implement what the citizens tell us they want. For example, with our citizen satisfaction survey that tells us what they want, we need to know whether or not when they say they want the streets, roads, bridges fixed, what are the conditions of those streets and roads? How do we prioritize what's there? How do we allocate funding to it? Perfect example. Our citizen satisfaction survey told us that they wanted to take care of the abandoned houses and buildings that had come through the last recession. So we looked at our facts and data, we looked at our 311 reports that told us where the buildings were, how many complaints there were, whether or not they were involved in criminal activity, whatever the case may be. And then the next year we allocated $10 million of general fund money to start over a 2-year program, taking down as many of those buildings as possible. So the facts and the data tell us what's out there. The citizen satisfaction survey tells us what the citizens prioritize, and then it's up for us to then take those two things and implement it through budgetary or resource allocations. Well, mayorship, frankly, was the only position in politics that I ever thought that I wanted, and that's primarily because it is an executive position on the city level. And it's my city, and I thought that by being there I could have an impact on our direction and what we wanted to do and needed to do in order to truly meet our potential. What drew me to politics was the very, very basic thing was I didn't like the way that the direction of the city was going. To be quite honest, we seemed to be wandering around and not getting things done. And when you're standing still, then you're going backwards. And I hated the idea of us going backwards. So I had just enough ego to think that I could help. And just enough bluster to actually want to do it. Plus, I have been practicing law for a long time, and it was time for a change. It worked out perfectly in my life cycle. My daughter was going to college at the time. My wife was working on a PhD. So I had opportunity and hopefully some preparation together. But the reason that I wanted to do it was because I saw something that I could do that might actually help. And it was, so far it's worked out. So it wasn't any grand altruistic thing. It was just a desire to move our city forward and the opportunity to do so based on where I was in my own life. I think they need to get familiar with exactly what public service is. And I think we need to talk about public service as opposed to politics. Politics is one thing, being of service in the public is a totally different thing. I personally believe that there should be a mandatory year of service for everyone after they finish high school, because I don't think a lot of people have any idea of what goes on outside of their own life, their own neighborhood, their own circle. And it's important as we move through life to have enough understanding of what's going on in other people's lives that we're empathetic and not critical, not judgmental. I think that young people are cynical and distrustful because the adults that have been running the show have led to that. They don't see problems being solved. They see a lot of negativity around political campaigns, etc. They see people who say one thing and do another, and that's not going to inspire a lot of confidence. One place where I think that's different is on the local level, because you can't run and hide. You have to be there and you're held accountable. So I think that the first thing that people ought to do is they ought to perform some service and understand that when you serve someone else, you're not giving them something, you're getting something. Because the act of service is in and of itself rewarding to you and helpful to others. And at some point in time, a lot of us are going to need somebody to help us. And it's nice to know how that's done and why that should be done and why it can be done. So I think that the best cure for cynicism and distrust is to put yourself out there and learn what you're being cynical and distrustful about. It's not public service. It's about politicians and the way that politics is played in this country right now. Those are two different things. We should always be willing to serve each other. We cannot survive without being of service to each other. And if our young people don't understand that, then we're going to be doomed. It's just that simple.